What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to give you our Week 5 picks across the college football landscape. Welcome into CFB with JD. This is a new channel. We're sort of a spin-off or under the umbrella, if you will, of 365 Sports. Right now, you could be watching this on 365 Sports or our channel CFB with JD. By next Monday, as in, after this Friday, the last episode will no longer be on 365 Sports. So I encourage you, I urge you, I don't beg you, but I do whatever right before begging is to subscribe to CFB with JD so we can keep this party rolling over to the new channel, because this community is what we have been so grateful for and want to keep that moving as we make a transition to the new channel CFB with JD. In the spirit of Week 5 picks, we'll go ahead and take a look back at Week 4 picks. I wouldn't do that unless we did well. If you followed along, we went 4 for 5 on picks in terms of bets and or like leans that we gave out. We went 5 for 5. So I would definitely not encourage you to parlay any picks we have here. I wouldn't even encourage you to necessarily for sure follow the picks that we give here. But, I just want to say there was some money made if you were following our picks last week. So again, choice is yours to fade or follow. Just think it's fair to tell you we did well last week. In regards to this week, we got a lot of great games all across the conferences, all across the landscape. We're not going to waste too much time. Arkansas at Georgia. Number 8, Arkansas, going into Athens. Arkansas is 18.5-point dogs. No pun intended. 18.5 points. That's a lot. We'll get to that in a second. Is Arkansas for real? We're going to learn a lot about them this weekend because right now it's Alabama and Georgia are your two top dogs, and it feels like it's everybody else. So Arkansas is coming in swinging after a huge win against Texas A&M, a game in which they essentially dominated start to finish. It was 17-0 in the first half. Arkansas had their way. They ran the ball really well, 197 yards on the ground, adding to their 262 they're averaging per game on the year. KJ Jefferson did really well through the air. We thought going into that game, okay, Arkansas is going to have to win in the trenches. They won in the trenches, but even more so, they made plays through the air. He was 7 for 15, which isn't amazing. 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's all you need. Kendall Briles and the gang had it going. For Georgia, their best win obviously is Clemson. And if I told you, okay, you're going to beat Clemson and that win's going to look a little bit iffy by Week 5, you'd say, well, what's going on with Clemson? And we are wondering what's going on with Clemson. That's a different video for a different time. But we're not sure how much weight that win really holds right now. And that's their real only solid competition. They beat South Carolina, which is obviously still a good win. But there's a lot still I think we're wanting to learn about Georgia because they've looked dominant against pretty much all opponents. JT Daniels was top 10 in the country in QBR. He's sitting at number 8 with around 87. Darnell Washington and Tyke Smith both are back for this one. Now, how much of a factor will they play in this game remains to be seen, but those are two big pieces you have to account for now if you're Arkansas. Obviously, Darnell Washington being your 6'7", 260-pound tight end, which is absolutely freakish. Expect them to be in 12 personnel all day long. Then Tyke Smith, the All-American safety, transferred from West Virginia to Georgia. Expect him to play a role. We'll see how much because he was obviously hurt for the duration of this season so far. How quickly do these two players get back to midseason form? Remains to be seen. The keys for this game, if you're Georgia, can you stop the run? Because Arkansas is going to be Arkansas. We know that. We know Arkansas is going to try and win in the trenches. They run the ball almost as much as anyone in the country, if not more than most people in the country, outside of the academies, running the ball right around 70% of the time. So the secondary is solid for Georgia. But can you win in the trenches and force Arkansas to have to throw the ball to that secondary? Because if you force KJ Jefferson to beat you through the air, again, 212 yards is great against A&M, but this is Georgia we're talking about. And 7 for 15 against Georgia, unless a lot of those are shot plays for touchdowns, I don't think that gets it done. Georgia's great in the trenches. They're giving up 2.3 yards a rush. You give up 2 yards a rush against Arkansas, you're winning this football game. Now, I like Georgia to win this football game. That's my pick. In terms of where we're putting our money, 18.5 points is a whole lot. That's a whole lot of points. I don't think Georgia is that dominant against Arkansas. I do think they win. I think they win handily because it's in Athens. I don't think 18.5 points is what it's going to come down to. I think Arkansas gives them a fight, especially in the first half. If Arkansas can dictate the tempo, this game will go very, very differently and can put Georgia in some trouble if they can keep JT Daniels off the field. But I think ultimately the defense for Georgia is too strong. JT Daniels is going to, I think, really have a statement game in this season. I like Georgia to win that football game. And again, Arkansas plus 18.5 would be where I put my money. Texas at TCU. Texas is favored by 5 points going into this one. TCU, a tough loss last week against SMU, allowed 42 points after a bye week, meaning you had a whole bye week to prep for SMU, and they still hung 42 on you. Now, the defense still forced 3 turnovers. Tanner Mordecai threw 3 interceptions to this defense, an encouraging sign for the Horned Frogs, but nonetheless, a loss is a loss. Zach Evans is still a man-child. I mean, I'm still waiting for the day we're going to say that someone stopped Zach Evans. He's averaging 8 yards a carry. Max Duggan played pretty well, 60% completion percentage, no picks, threw 3 touchdowns against SMU, so he's looking solid. Then for Texas, they hung 70 points. Texas scored 70 points in a football game against an FBS opponent, against a conference opponent. It wasn't Kansas. It was Texas Tech. I apologize for the shade, Jayhawk fans. They feel like they have it figured out on offense now. I mean, maybe it's too soon to say. We're going to see in this game. Casey Thompson looks phenomenal. He looks like he's your quarterback. I hope and pray that Texas finally has a quarterback. You got Hudson Card, you got Casey Thompson. Just pick one. Just pick one. Right now, Casey Thompson's been the guy for you. I would say play the hot hand. Bijan Robinson looks like one of the best backs, if not the best back in college football right now. Xavier Worthy had 3 touchdowns receiving against Tech. Like, they're clicking on all cylinders. The thing that I'm worried about for Texas is they're giving up 4 yards a carry. Giving up 5 yards a carry. Anytime you got Zach Evans running the ball on the opposite side of the field and you're giving up 5 yards a clip and he's averaging 8 yards a clip, that could spell trouble for Texas. So the defense is still solid, but they got to shore up that running game. So what the game comes down to me, which defense is going to show up? Which defense is going to have the best game? And my money and my pick, truthfully, rides with TCU because Gary Patterson has only lost 1 time at home to Texans since joining the Big 12. You can say what you want about TCU during the season and this game and that game, whatever they put on tape. They come to play against Texas. They come to play against Texas at home. So for that reason, I like TCU to win the game. I also like them plus 5.5. The rule of thumb for me right now is don't lose sleep over a moneyline underdog pick in this one. Could go either way. I like Gary Patterson. I like the way that he's schemed up Texas in the past. So I like them plus 5. If you want to go money line and be a crazy person, go for it. I think you'll sleep easier with plus 5.5. I think that's a better bet. Arguably the game of the week, a top 10 matchup, number 7, Cincinnati at Notre Dame. Cincinnati favored by 2 points on the road. Very, very interesting. Notre Dame got a solid win a week ago against Wisconsin, neutral site. Jack Cohn left that game. He's still listed as the starter in this one. Unclear as to if he will be the starter. There's a lot of question marks circling around. Bottom line, Jack Cohn may or may not play. Listed as a starter right now on paper. They've been balanced offensively. They've been pretty balanced. They've been able to throw the ball more than they run it, around 53% throwing the ball. Scored 35 a game, but you're still not getting what you need in the running game for Notre Dame just yet. I think they're averaging somewhere around 2 yards a carry. Very much not what you want to see. On the bright side, your defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, has held opponents to like 19 points a game. They averaged about, I think, the top 25 in the country. A little more than 19 points a game, but still defense is playing solid. The reason why Marcus Freeman is such an interesting character in this game, because he used to be the DC for Cincinnati. So he's coaching his old team. On the other side, Cincinnati, that stat is correct for them. They're only giving up 19 points a game. So not missing a beat just yet. Their only real opponent has been Indiana on the road. They didn't play phenomenal, but found a way to get it done. They're scoring 43 a game on offense, and that's what I really want to look at. Desmond Ridder looked a little bit shaky against Indiana at 55% completion percentage. Not great. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. They're only allowing 38% through the air on defense. So the defense is going to be solid. Defense is going to test Notre Dame. I think the defense alone keeps you in this game for Cincinnati. Now, for Desmond Ridder, can you play mistake-free football? Can you create? Can you be a playmaker for Cincinnati? That's what I want to see. I think he can. I think he's primed for this game. There was a quote that came out when the offensive coordinator for Cincinnati was talking to Desmond Ridder, and they were pumping in crowd volume during practice, and they said, hey, Desmond, it's going to be loud. It's going to be loud in South Bend. He said, it'll be loud for a little bit till I quiet him. I may be paraphrasing. That's the sentiment. I like the swag from him. I like Desmond Ridder in this game. I like Cincinnati. I like them -2. I mean, if you're betting them money line, that's pretty soft. If you're taking Notre Dame +2, you think they lose anyway, go ahead and put it all in Cincinnati -2. I like them in that pick. Then we got 21 Baylor into Stillwater at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State minus 3.5. Baylor coming off an enormous win against Iowa State. At home, the team played good, not great. Got some help from special teams to Treston Ebner with a punt return and a kickoff for a touchdown. Punt return was into enemy territory, not for a touchdown, but still set them up for points. Gary Bohannon looked efficient outside of a fumble. He's been exactly what they've asked him to do so far. They're going to ask him to do, I think, a little bit more on the road against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, I was down. I left them for dead against Kansas State, and all they did was pull out an enormous win at home. Spencer Sanders threw for 344 yards. They have been feeding Jalen Warren, the running back, 59 carries, 341 yards these past 2 games. They've looked really, really tough on defense. So it's going to be a battle in Stillwater. I don't think either team runs away with it. It will be a battle. I think right now I ride with Baylor because of their momentum and their confidence they have. They just beat a really good team in Iowa State. Iowa State, for a lot of people, was the Big 12 champ going into this year. You look at last year, Baylor got absolutely abused in their season finale against Oklahoma State at home. You don't think they remember that? You don't think they got a little bit of unfinished business they want to take care of? I like Baylor. I like them plus 3.5. I think they're able to get it done. Let's call it, I say they win by 5 points. Take Baylor by 5. If it gets any higher than that, I probably don't feel comfortable taking them plus 3.5, but I do think they win this game. Ole Miss, number 12 Ole Miss at Alabama. Number 1 ranked Alabama. Bama is minus 14.5 in this game. That's a whole lot of points. Bryce Young's been rolling right along for them. He's looked phenomenal. They've answered the call every single time offensively, even in the Florida game where they had to come back and find a way to regroup and beat Florida. They didn't have to come back from a point deficit, but they had to kind of get a sense of urgency again and find a way to beat Florida on the road in the swamp. Great win. Should build your confidence. Outside of that, Miami doesn't look like a great win. I mean, there was a lot of hype going into that game, but Florida is really the only game that we can hang our hat on for the Crimson Tide right now, and then everything we know about Nick Saban. So you feel good about this game because of Bryce Young. You feel good about this game because of Nick Saban. On the other side, Matt Corral is the Heisman frontrunner, and for good reason. He's played out of his mind. 9 touchdowns passing, no interceptions. That's a huge stat. No interceptions for Matt Corral. He's played very efficient, very effective as well. He's been a game breaker for them so far. They've beat some good competition for the most part. The keys to this game, can the Bama defense clean up what they did against Florida? Because they did not look like the best team in the country against Florida. Now, again, that's a tough place to play. Emory Jones was a good quarterback. I think he showed a lot on film that game for Florida. But for Alabama, you can't play the way you did against Emory Jones and expect to be victorious against Ole Miss and Matt Corral. I know it's at home. I know Bryant-Denny's a tough place to play for opponents. But Matt Corral can use his legs too. He's not Emory Jones. He's probably a different brand of mobility, but he still has 5 rushing touchdowns. He'll hurt you on the ground if you let him. I still think Bama wins this game, but the defense has to find a way to clean it up and be able to answer the call against Matt Corral, because if they don't, this could get very, very interesting. I don't think Bama's 14.5 points better in this game. I think it's close to that. I think they win by somewhere around 10, but let's go ahead and take Ole Miss plus 14.5. We're picking Bama to win the game. So those are the picks. It's a phenomenal slate, a lot of ranked football on your television screen. You don't want to miss a minute. Make sure you stay up to date with everything going on here at the Hard Count. We are moving to CFB with JD. Subscribe right now. It's in the description. Would love to have you along for the ride as we transition over to the new channel. We're going to be doing a lot of cool things as soon as we transition over. Can't tell you what those are just yet, but you're going to want to subscribe so you don't miss a minute of it. We will keep the party rolling here, and we will see y'all next time.